Good morning. You can see that I'm still in my bathrobe. I had this idea to talk about this yesterday, and this morning I woke up and I was just looking at, listening to the news and going through some of the comments, and I actually read an article yesterday about this. And today someone just came up with, like, there's a guy who just like put like one comment or the same comment on like 10 different of my videos, and just some of them really unrelated, but just saying like really hateful stuff. And so this is what I really want to talk about. Being hateful online. It actually is much easier than being polite. And I want to give you an example of what I mean and what I think this hate is coming from. Because I've experienced it quite a bit. I've had death threats on my videos, especially the ones about India. You'll see on some of my, like there's a video about a woman who's being tased, and there are like hundreds of comments, and people are actually going back and forth arguing about anything related to crime and tasers and race and class and law enforcement. And just to see that the languages that people use, and this is also reflected in the conversations that people have about race here in India, you know, people seem to fall into these extremes, like racism doesn't exist and you're crazy and it's just this, you know, versus people just like, Indians are so racist and self-hating. And so it becomes just like the political chatter that we hear in America. It's so polarized. And at a certain point, if you stop and sit back and don't get wrapped up into it, you see that yes, it's hate speech on both sides, on whatever side you happen to agree with, but on both sides, because neither is listening to the other. And they're not even, I don't want to say they're not communicating, but they're certainly not having a dialogue. They're certainly not listening and responding to that person's concerns. They're only saying, I think this. But that's not a dialogue. Because A, you're not listening, and B, you're not letting what that person says impact what you say. And without doing that, you could be talking to a blank wall. And even though the internet, except for chatting, is in many ways unidirectional, kind of like, you know, I say this and I record this, and you leave a comment, or you leave a comment and then somebody else leaves a comment, or I send you an email and then you read and you send me an email back, and on and on and on. So there isn't this face-to-face contact, this, you know what, looking in your eyes. And so we don't have this reality of real world communication where you really do have to look in a person's eyes and you really do have to say, do I want to say this like this? Like, what is my intention of saying this? And I say this because I'll just give you, you know, a quick example with the, you know, that just happened today, you know, with the racism in India, and people are quick to say, well, you don't understand anything about, you know, race in India and blah, 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 blah. And it's always said in this context of foreigner get out, or, you know, I hate foreigners. It's never, it's very rarely in a sense of, I think, you know, like if you were to listen to someone and you think that they're just totally missing something, and you want to kind of help them link that, or say, well, you know, did you think about this? Or what do you think about X, Y, Z? And just think about that. In a sense, I've said the same thing. You don't know anything about versus what do you think about? Or would you consider this in your argument? And they're coming from two different spaces. One is from a place where a person is actually listening and making an attempt to understand that person's position. Now, listen, hold that point because that's key. The other person is not seeing that other person's position. They're just standing here. So the difference is you are lodged in your place, or you say, my place is stable. I don't need to and defend where I am. I can actually go over, even physically walk over to that person and see and talk to them. And that's an interesting analogy when it comes to the stop and stare videos. And it's one of the reasons why I find it so fascinating. And a lot of people find it fascinating, but albeit through their comments to me, like you'll have people who say, why don't you just go up and talk to them? And it's an obvious thing that you would think, you know, if you're sitting and watching someone stare at you. But it's different from, you don't understand anything and you don't, because when I hear that, it makes me think, okay, that person has some insecurities and that person feels attacked, demonized even. And as a matter of fact, this is an ongoing discussion that I have with a friend of mine from years ago who even commented on this. And so just how you communicate with people. And why is it so easy to just say, nigger, 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 fag, 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 niggers are stupid, blackies are this, and steal, and blah, blah, blah. Why is it so easy to do that online? Because you're not looking in the person's eyes, and you don't have to consider how that person might respond. Or, importantly also, how that person might be affected by what you say. How that person might feel about what you say. I mean, do you intend to hurt people? Now, I know that a lot of people could give a crap about, offending someone else or hurting someone else's feelings on the conscious level. But I do think that subconsciously we're aware that when we're face to face with someone, we will be aware of how our words impact them. So if we really want to hurt someone, yeah, we can. But aren't there other ways? Aren't there more sophisticated ways that I would argue? And I do mean sophisticated ways of expressing ideas. I'm tired of the hate mongering on the comments on my videos, for example, or even that, and I look at the profiles of the people who have left hateful comments, and then you see the comments that other people have left on their pages. Oh, you hateful, and you're nasty, and you're self-hating, and you see like, oh, this person literally has a pattern of just going around hating people and leaving hot, messages of hot garbage, and that's where I really want to emphasize for people who are tempted to say, who are tempted to hate on the haters, to say that no. When someone has a pattern of just, you suck, and you're this, and you're a faggot, and you're a nigger, and you're a blah, 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 or they're just poor and illiterate, as people dismiss the people who are stopping and staring in my videos on the street here. They're just poor, and they're just illiterate, and they're low caste, and you shouldn't ignore them, but you don't understand India, and all those kinds of contradictions. But before you hate them, listen really to what the person is saying. They're saying that I'm so uncomfortable with myself that anything you say that challenges where I think I am rocks my world. And those kind of people are dangerous because they will hurt you in words. They might try and follow up and try and get you somewhere because they always are thinking on that gut level. And I think that those of us who use the internet a lot and get used to speaking to people, interacting with people that way, are going to have a difficult time in the future. If that future includes encountering people, face to face. Now, if you only encounter people in the mall and in shopping or in positions where people are subordinate to you, and then you come home and all you encounter is people on the net and you interact with people that way, it is a little bit alarming when you think about it, because no one is there to tell that person, to respond to that person, or to make that person be accountable. And that's what it really comes down to, is accountability. How do we make people accountable for their actions, for their words? I mean, this is every parent's dilemma. And here I am having this very same discussion on YouTube. And that is absolutely what it's about. It's about being poorly trained or not. And the reality is most of our parents now don't know what to teach kids about how to be on the net. And most of us who are my age, who grew up with computers and saw the net grow and flourish, we're developing the language. There is very little so-called net etiquette. And this is what I want you to consider. What is net etiquette? Do we have the responsibility to not just come up with our gut feeling and say, ah, but to say, okay, let me take a moment and let me say what I really think you need to hear.